Welcome to Non-Aligned Perspective, where the world's most crucial stories meet unbiased analysis. Navigate the complexities of international relations, history, and global politics. Explore the connections that shape our world. Non-Aligned Perspective, a fresh view on global affairs. Stay tuned for more updates.
Today we dive into one of the most talked about global conflicts of recent years, the US-China trade war. Trump is back. Will his return ignite a new chapter in the US-China trade war, or will it finally bring an end to one of the biggest economic conflicts of our time? We will unpack the history, analyze the impact, compare Trump's and Biden's approaches, and discuss what might come next. So stay tuned till the end. To understand the present, let's rewind to 2018. The US China trade war officially began when then President Donald Trump imposed tariffs on Chinese goods, claiming unfair trade practices, currency manipulation, and a lack of reciprocity. When the trade war began, it marked one of the largest sets of tariffs the US had imposed since the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act of 1930, which is often cited as one of the contributing factors to the Great Depression. This comparison raised serious concerns among economists who worried that history could repeat itself with negative impacts on the global economy. China retaliated with tariffs on American products, and the ensuing tit for tat escalated quickly. By 2020, hundreds of billions of dollars worth of goods were affected. The stakes were high, not just for the US and China, but for global trade dynamics. So, with this backstory in mind, you might wonder, how did this trade war affect everyday industries? Let's take a closer look at who felt the impact and how it changed the game for sectors like tech industry, agriculture, and manufacturing. Firstly, tech industry. Remember Huawei? The US put major restrictions on them, cutting them off from American tech and forcing the company to develop its own operating system. By 2019, Huawei had become the second largest smartphone manufacturer globally, overtaking Apple. However, the US imposed severe restrictions on Huawei, limiting its access to American made technology like Google's Android. This led to a sharp decline in Huawei's smartphone sales and forced the company to develop its own operating system. This was a huge shift in the tech world because it pushed China to focus more on homegrown tech solutions. And it was not just tech. US farmers, especially soybean producers, were hit hard too. China was a massive market for American agriculture, and when tariffs went up, they felt it in their wallets. Back in 2018, during the initial rounds of tariffs, a group of US soybean farmers visited Beijing to negotiate with Chinese buyers directly. They were attempting to maintain ties despite the tariffs because China was their largest market. The farmers' efforts became a symbol of the trade war casualties as they struggled to keep their livelihoods afloat amid shifting policies. Then there's manufacturing. American companies that rely on Chinese materials saw their production costs go up, and they had to pass some of those costs on to consumers. So that's where you and I might have felt the trade war directly, in the form of higher prices at the store. Now, these industry changes were not just numbers on a spreadsheet. They reflected something much bigger, a clash of political and economic philosophies between two global powers. Let's dig into the motivations behind these moves from both Trump and China's leadership. Trump's strategy fit right into his America First policy, and it made sense for a lot of Americans who were concerned about jobs going overseas. For China, the trade war became a chance to strengthen its own industries. They launched this big campaign called Made in China 2025 to cut back on imports and become more self sufficient in tech and manufacturing. Interestingly, one of the main points in Trump's arguments for tariffs was that the US was running a significant trade deficit with China, amounting to nearly $400 billion in 2018. But economists note that a trade deficit is not necessarily a bad thing. Rather, it can signal a healthy, growing economy with high consumer demand. During the trade war, US consumers saw price increases in common goods from electronics to groceries. This led to an estimated cost of $1,300 per year for the average American household. Interestingly, despite these impacts, surveys showed that many Americans supported Trump's stance, highlighting the public concerns over China's growing influence. While Trump's motivations were clear, the approach taken by his successor, President Biden, shook things up. So, how did Biden's policies differ? And what does it mean now that Trump is back? Let's break down the contrasting approaches of these two leaders. You would think the trade war might have eased up, right? But Biden actually kept most of Trump's tariffs in place, though his approach was a little different. Biden focused on building alliances to counter China instead of going it alone. He tried to get other countries on board, thinking a united front would work better. But now, with Trump back, we are likely to see a return that could mean higher tariffs, stricter policies, and a bigger push for US made products. Under Biden, the US China trade deficit hit a record high in 2021. Despite the tariffs showing how challenging it is to shift trade balances quickly, Biden's administration maintained Trump's tariffs but focused on alliances, hoping a united front could apply pressure to China without worsening consumer costs domestically. One of Biden's approaches involved joining the Indo Pacific Economic Framework with countries like Japan and Australia to counter China's influence in Asia. However, some critics argued this multilateral approach lacked the impact of Trump's direct tariffs, while others believed it to be a more sustainable long term solution. With Trump back in office, these differences are more relevant than ever. But what can we expect from Trump's trade strategy this time around? Here's a look at what experts predict for Trump's second go at reshaping US China relations. We will likely see a no holds barred approach from Trump this time, says trade analysts. He is going to double down on his original strategies. And it's not just the US and China, the ripple effects could hit economies all over the world. American companies are already looking to decouple from China, moving production to places like Vietnam and India. But that's not a quick fix, and it's going to be expensive. We might see higher costs across the board, affecting prices for everyday products. These predictions go beyond politics. They are likely to influence every part of the global economy, from supply chains to consumer prices. So, how might Trump's return impact the world economy? Let's take a closer look at the big picture. If Trump enacts additional tariffs, economists predict it could further accelerate China's pivot towards regional allies, particularly within Asia and Africa. China has already been increasing its trade presence in these regions, investing heavily in infrastructure and supply chains as part of its Belt and Road Initiative. During his previous term, Trump proposed the idea of a zero tariff trade deal where the US and other countries would completely eliminate tariffs on each other's goods. Although this concept never came to fruition, it's one potential strategy Trump might revisit as a way to isolate China economically while strengthening ties with key allies. Over 60% of rare earth minerals, which are essential for products like smartphones, electric vehicles, and military equipment, are processed in China. If Trump enacts stricter policies on trade with China, it could disrupt the supply of these critical resources, potentially leading to higher costs or shortages for companies worldwide. During the trade war's peak, several US companies, including Apple, considered moving parts of their manufacturing from China to countries like Vietnam and India to avoid tariffs. However, these relocations are costly, and many companies ultimately kept production in China, underscoring just how intertwined the global economy is with Chinese manufacturing. So there you have it. With Trump back, the US China trade war is likely entering a new phase. We have seen what it's done to industries and economies, and we are about to see what comes next. The stakes are higher than ever, whether it's renewed tariffs, shifts in global supply chains, or potential economic decoupling, this trade war's next chapter will impact us all. If you found this analysis insightful, hit the like button and share your thoughts in the comments. Where do you think this is all headed? Don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into global issues and tap the bell icon so you are the first to know when we upload. Thank you.